Happy Sunday. This is Monica from the Bright Bible, and I'm joining you today on this beautiful afternoon. Hopefully, wherever you are in the world today, you are getting the sunshine that we are getting here in northern Michigan. I sure am glad to be with you, and I am looking forward to a really unique, this is out of the box today. So I hope you guys are ready for a little game time change of plans. We're going to be journaling, but we're going to journal something really specific that we will be able to use. It's more of an art lesson today. I have to be honest with you. It's more of an art lesson, and going to be doing something that's kind of a fun, non-traditional tip-in. So I think today is going to be the perfect place as we are going to read something that is a very simple truth that kind of takes over, a larger piece of scripture here in Leviticus, but I think it's definitely a truth word, and it's a word that represents the Lord so much, and that is how holy He is. I can tell you right off the bat that if you're joining me and you don't have a paper and pencil with you, you are definitely going to want one for today's lesson. So just grab yourself a piece of paper and a pencil, and let's get going together. If you are joining today and you're just an observer of Bible journaling and you haven't quite made that jump, today's a great way to create a beautiful tip-in for yourself, and I'll explain the process of a tip-in here in just a minute. And that way you can just add it to whatever Bible you are in, whether you have a big, wide space like I do in this interleave, or whether you have a single column, or whether you just have a regular Bible that you want to add a little flair to. So any of those options are going to work for us. So I'm going to go ahead and read in verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to all the congregation of the people of Israel, and say to them, You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Every one of them shall revere his mother and his father, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn from idols or make yourselves any gods of cast metal. I am the Lord your God." Pretty simple, straightforward command here. I'm the Lord your God. You should be holy and live a holy life as I am holy. And so I want to take this word holy, and we're going to do a little optical illusion. It's going to be fun. So I want you guys to get out a pencil and a paper. I would strongly suggest that when you are working with a tip-in situation, you can use any material that you want as far as paper goes, but I like to have a good heavy cardstock, or even the back side of a colorful scrapbook paper, something that's going to be a little bit sturdier for you. And that's what we're going to be drawing on. Now, we're going to be very technical today. So our lesson is very technical, I'll be honest with you, but we are going to enjoy it. Now, one of the things that I want to take into consideration right now, and I just closed my Bible, so let me open this back up, is the fact that my Bible page is obviously going to be quite a bit smaller than my paper. So we're going to have to work on a little bit of a smaller scale. And actually, I'm going to go this way because I want to maximize this a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just eyeball a couple of cuts so I can shrink my paper down, because there would be nothing worse than you following me along here and then us all making these giant words that we can't even use in our Bible as a tip-in. So we're going to do that first. We'll cut this down to size. And this is great because then you can do this to fit your own Bible. My Bible is pretty large. This interleaved tends to be a pretty large size Bible. Your pages might be smaller, but whatever you end up getting with, let's just go ahead and do it this way. Okay. Now, I told you we're going to be technical. So one of the things that we're going to start with here is we're going to offset our marks, and let me make sure I'm right on the camera. Oh, that would not have been good. Let's get that straightened around here. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm gonna try to be as particular with you guys as we're doing some measuring today. I'm gonna say let's go down a half an inch. Okay, so we're just gonna come down about a half an inch. All of this right now is just totally eyeballing it. And what we're doing is we're setting ourselves a little edge border. We don't want to draw into that top edge. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. I'm going to press pretty hard because I want you guys to be able to see on the camera what I'm doing. but work lightly in case you have to do any erasing. Then I'd say this is going to be the height of our letters, and we're going to be working with the word holy. I'm going to just go ahead and write that down so that we can just have it as a little visual for ourselves. I like to just see what I'm working with here. I know it's just a small word, but let's keep this in the camera view, and then it will keep our minds in the right places. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to measure up, I don't know, maybe this is almost 3 inches. So I'll just kind of go up here, 2.5, 3 inches up. Doesn't really matter how much farther up your paper you are, as long as you're not getting too big here. This is the top and the bottom line for your 4 letters of the word holy. Okay? So that's the basic idea. Now I want to also come in off of this slightly as well. And I mean just like a teensy weensy bit is fine. Just so I'm not right on the edge. And thankfully, my first letter is an H, so that's going to be perfect. So I've given myself a good starting point. Now, for somebody who loves to hand letter and loves to be artistic with lettering, this is exactly what I do almost any time I'm planning out a writing, okay? So I'm always thinking, what is the top of my letter line and what is the bottom? This would be like if I was doing a sign or a poster or something that needed to be kind of even. Doing it in my Bible is a little different. Thankfully, a lot of times our Bibles have those lines, so it's great. But because we're working on a piece of white paper, we want to make sure we give ourselves a little bit of working room. Now, this edge is a lot more important. We want to stay off this edge as much as we can here on this edge, maybe even up to 1.5 inches. Okay, and you'll understand that later. So what you'll notice is we're kind of offsetting high and to the left. So that's what we're going to work with, okay? We have 4 letters, and I don't know about you, so you're going to have to look at your paper and do some measuring, but I'm thinking maybe like 2-inch spaces is about what's going to get me. So the first thing I'm going to do here is actually make a little mark every 2 inches. All right, we're going to keep these letters basically hugging each other. Ooh, that's going to be a little too, it's going to be a little too big. I'm going to go 1.5 inches. I'm going 1.5 inches. I'm going back on my word. That's why we use pencil first. Always, always. Here's a good eraser. I'm going to go 1.5 inches because I don't want to get too close to this edge. We're staying over to the side. 1.5 inches. And I don't have to be super particular, like once I get to where I'm creating the letters, but I definitely want to at least start with an even piece here. In this particular page, and now remember, we cut our pages to fit our own Bibles. So it might be a little different, but my letters are about 3 inches high, and I just made them 1.5 inches wide for my spacing. So the moral of the story here is I want to space out, and this would be true for any particular word that you use this method with in the future, because I guarantee you're going to have fun with this. Okay. The main thing is just giving yourself even spaces. Now, if I want my O to be a little bit wider, then I would just kind of shift everything around. But at least for now, I've got at least a good starting line. So this is what I'm starting with. So for instance, the H, super duper easy, right? It's already straight for me. So I have to kind of eyeball this. I'm going to go ahead and just double these lines here. Come off of here. And then I'm just going to give myself a little connector wherever I feel like it. Boom and boom. That's what I've decided. Okay? So there's my letter H. And all I really had to do is just to draw those 2 main lines and connect. what you're going to do is to get out a good thick pen. Now this is a Faber-Castell Pitt pen, but it is, let's see, a 1,5, which is all right. Now we have gotten to the point where we have this bad boy traced. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to erase. We're going to erase all these guidelines because we no longer need them. Now, once you have this done with me today, you may go back, once you kind of see how this is going to work, you may go back and change up the font of your letters, or, you know, do some extra decorations or change up how you've written them. But for right now, this is what we're going to play with because it's the easiest to see the results with. Okay. So now what I want you guys to do, I'm going to get this out of the way here so we have a little more room. We're going to turn so our letters are on an angle from us, okay? So they're very much on an angle. We're going to use this, this far corner here. Let me see if I can see this on the camera. I want to make sure you guys can get this. We're going to kind of put a little point here on our paper. We're going to call this a vanishing point. We're not gonna get crazy, okay? We're not gonna have them like super duper strong, but we're going to in some regard take notice of this little point. And what we're going to do is to use our ruler, and we're going to connect lines back towards this line. We don't even have to come all the way this way, but each corner, each point of our letter is going to kind of come back on an angle. So here's, you know, the two ends of these guys, the two ends of these guys, this one here, this one here, anything that I would be able to see. So any point. Now, the tricky thing with the circles is that they don't really have a point. So that's why I like to do those circles a little more squared. So you can give yourself somewhat of a base. At least kind of show where those sides of the circle are. You'll be able to adjust that later. The L, corner, corner. And like I said, do not get crazy trying to make everything come to this point. I think my point was actually probably a little bit too close, but that's all right. We'll make this work. But we are shifting. This is the important part, is that as you're going up to these top pieces, you're shifting them. You're shifting your ruler. That's why I wanted you to have a ruler and to have that point in line, because you want to be able to make those adjustments. Now, remember that if your letter has like a crease, you have to include that. So I put that line in there, and I am missing one line right here. So sometimes these other letters, depending on where they are, like the H had that, the L has this, you want to make sure that you come up here as well. Okay, so you're going to see that all these lines are kind of coming in this direction. Now, it is now time for us to not worry about all this extra stuff. Like, I would literally just get rid of some of this extra so that you don't obsess over it. Some of you are going to obsess over those lines. Where they end up is irrelevant, okay? These are just guidelines for us. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get our ruler parallel with the bottom of these letters. Okay, so parallel, and we're going to slide them slightly. We can go down as far as we want. I'm going to go down to there. Maybe I'm off a ½ inch. And I'm going to very carefully, and I'm parallel, so it's going to be very easy as long as you have a ruler in place. I am going to give myself a parallel line anywhere where there was a letter line. So for instance, I'm copying this and I'm pasting it here. I'm copying this, pasting it here. Now this one is an O. I want to, now this is going to be tricky. I should have never put this little guy right there. Just leave it there. Okay, so where that O stops is where I want to make a mark. And I'm going to copy and paste this curve. Okay, so here it is lined up. I'm going to copy and paste this curve. So it's going to look something like that. Okay, so right between here and the L. Get to the L, line back up, straight across, and then the bottom of my Y, straight across. So I really did not have that many places. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use my black pen. We are not finished, but I'm going to trace for you what we just did. We still have a few lines here that we have to deal with, but first, we did all of our horizontal lines. We're sliding, we're sliding, we're sliding. We don't have any more. Now we're going to shift and we're going to look for anything that we need to use as a vertical. There's little tiny, tiny places for verticals. The H and the L. See, I didn't even have to have my ruler for those three. So let me do this. The H's have that little tiny vertical where it tucks back behind the O. In this case, tucks back behind the Y. And then we've got this Y on the end, which is pretty significant. So I'm going to slide this down. So see, I'm parallel here. I'm going to slide it down. Okay, now what do we do with this guy? We've got this weird angle. All I have to do is to line my ruler up with that angle and slide it until I hit this other point that I just drew. Okay, so there we are. So here's the three dimensionals. Okay, now we still have a couple things that we have to trace. Thankfully, the hard work is done at this point, all right? But we've got a couple lines to trace that we're hiding behind. The L goes behind the Y itself right here. Even this crease, we probably want to mark that out. I didn't have to do that. I don't know why I did that. I didn't have to do that. The H's come tuck behind the O, and then this little guy in there, which is also one of the creases. Okay? Inside here, this L would not be going into nowhere. Okay? So we have to bring this line down. I would just kind of bring it down like that. That's the inside part of the L. So I'm going to look for whatever colors kind of pop out. I'm thinking I might do like reds and purples. Okay, so I am using these purples. I want to see which one this was. So that one's the little bit more blue. Okay. And what I'm going to do is color in so that the color that I want on the top is going to be the lightest. This part I'm making up because I haven't done this in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and just color this in, the lightest color that I have. And then we'll work from there. I don't know why I keep jumping to the L. It probably drives people nuts. Like, just go to the H. So I'm going to go ahead and just color in my lightest on the top, and then you'll see why here in just a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the light color, and I'm going to fade it in as I go down this side to the darker. And if it's easier for you to start at the darker and work to the lighter, that works too. Maybe that's what I'll do. Okay, I'm going to the darkest. I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to kind of come in here. Now you can do it in streaks or just kind of like loosey-goosey. I think I'll probably keep it pretty straightforward. Use my darkest towards the bottom. I'll do the Y first so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Trying to get the vibes. And with Tombows, I mean, they're not like, it's not like you're blending colored pencils together, certainly. But if you do kind of go back and forth over them, they do a decent job of giving like those in-betweens. And you know what else? The other thing that Tombows are great with is if you're on like shinier paper, that would help too, to make them a little more blender friendly. Okay, oops, and I forgot to go over here as well. So darkest is down in here, just kind of lightening as I go. Again, if this is too streaky for you, you're not a marker fan, then just use some colored pencils and then you have a little more control over them. This might be a Monday challenge. I like that. Mondays are good for challenges. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on each of these letters, but here's an area I want to avoid, so don't do that part right there. Don't do it. And I'm gonna just go straight up purple here in this, the bottom side of this H. But yeah, that's what you can do later too. You can go back there with the black line if you need to and just darken it up, thicken it up anywhere that you might have had a little trouble seeing the lines or the edges. Okay, so here we are with our 3D word. Now this in itself is really cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cool. But we're gonna make it over the top super duper awesome. And the way we're going to do that is to, first of all, we're gonna erase all of these extra pencil lines. So we no longer need them. Just make sure that your Tombow pen is nice and dry before you start going ballistic erasing. So we'll get rid of all of those extra marks, okay? I think this will make a really cool tip-in that you don't see when you open the page up and then you flip it out. We'll see about that. We'll see what happens, but I think that's going to be kind of cool. Okay, now the next and last thing that we're going to do is to draw a straight line. If you want to use your straight edge, that's fine. So I came off the edge originally like 1/4 of an inch. That was just for safety precaution. What we're gonna do now is actually bring it in. I think I'm just about 3/4 of an inch in. But we wanna come into the bottom of the first part of that letter, okay? Then what we're gonna do is turn the opposite way. So this was our vertical line. Now we're gonna bring a horizontal line somewhere on the top part of this letter. Thinking here would make the most. Let me think about this for a second. I want to make sure yep. I don't want you to come any further than this point. So this is probably where I'm going to end it on that Y. I think that's going to make the most sense. I might actually come up just a teeny bit. So somewhere off the edge, and I'm going to go straight out with it. Okay? So these are going to be my cut marks. Cut and cut. What we've done is we have done our 3-dimensional letters. We have created a shadow or the 3-dimensional aspect of it. So we've given it some height. And now because we have cut this, we are going to move our phone. You may already see the effect that it's taking, but I'm going to actually get myself a little tiny piece of washi tape. Only because when I do this picture, or I'm gonna move the phone a little bit here, I want you guys to be able to see the full effect of what happens with the 3D. So it's just a really fun way to create the illusion that these letters are actually coming off of the page, and just something fun. It's just something fun and different. This is a little taste of the types of fun lessons that I like to try to teach my kids at school. It's just, you know, it's good 3D lesson drawing. It's perspective, being able to create, like, you know, distance, because really when you're doing, you know, a house or something in the distance, you want to have that point of perspective that we did before, that line, or the guidelines, and then the point. So if we come down here, we can then get on an angle with this and allow it to almost appear like it's coming off of the page. And you can really play with this and then trick people by taking a picture and have them believe that your letters are actually coming up off the paper. So it is really a cool effect, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. A little more artsy-fartsy than the norm, but a good lesson for all of you guys, and something fun you can play around with the kids and the grandkids and take a picture and say, hey, how did these letters get 3D? It's really fun too if you interact with it. So sometimes we'll draw little people or cut little people out from the magazine and like have them hanging down off of things. It looks really cool. So I just thought this would be a fun thing going here. You know, you got that 3D, but when you tip it, it can be a lot of fun for that optical illusion, but something a little bit different that you can then use in your Bible. So what I would do at this point, let me go ahead and grab this. I'm not going to do much here more, but let's just look at how we could use this. I am probably going to redo mine a little more sophisticatedly for my Bible. Before I put it in my Bible, I want to play around with this a little bit more, some colors. But for the sake of a tip-in, for those of you that don't know, a tip-in is referring to a very old, it's an old way of how they would edit books. So if a page was missing from a book, or they needed to, you know, like how we do different editions, instead of reprinting the whole thing, they would take a new page wherever the correction needed to be, and they would tape it right into that book, and it was, you know, an added tip-in. Well, what we like to do here at the Bright Bible, and with lots of Bible journalers like to do this, is we like to take things and either add them to the edge where you could kind of have this be an addition outside of your page, so it could stay in your Bible this way, or and then be taped here with washi tape. We love to use our washi tape, and let me just show you what I mean by this. I take for granted sometimes that some of you might be beginners and you want to know what we're doing. So I like to use this washi tape, and if I was going to do this as a tip-in, this whole thing, I would tape it here, but along this whole edge, and then fold it under so that I could then have it fall out this way. You could do a shorter version of this to a smaller version and have it come out at the top. I think that would be really cool. And the other thing that you could do is just tape it in here so that it's either was off of the page and kind of stuck out of your Bible, which would be kind of fun to have that extra element, or just taping it inside and having that be an added piece such as this. So all sorts of different options. I think this is kind of fun because you can write on this area. It's still gonna give you the same illusion because we've got the cuts. So you could still do your note taking. You can still do some imagery. This is the back plane. So if you think about this in planes, this is like the floor. Okay, so it's not going to change your illusion if you add to it. I just would avoid the colors. So if you are going to do some writing or some additional art to this, I would definitely avoid, kind of like in my case, the purples and the pinks, and probably go with something a little like black writing, obviously, but some lighter colors. And that way there's that good contrast that's going to play along with the optical illusion. So that's really what optical illusions are all about. It's about angles, it's about shadows, and it's about contrast. So when you use those three things together, you often get a beautiful optical illusion. And I hope that you've enjoyed playing today.